for decades. Niger has been known as a land rich in natural resources, but poor in living conditions. Beneath its soil lie vast deposits of uranium, gold, and oil. Yet, for many years, the wealth from these resources rarely seemed to transform the daily lives of ordinary citizens. That contradiction has shaped a powerful political debate inside the country and across the Sahel region. Recently, Niger's military government made a decision that sent a strong message to the global energy and mining industries. Authorities cancelled several mining concessions granted to foreign companies and refused to extend an oil exploration license held by a British energy firm. The government argued that these companies had failed to respect their contractual obligations, including tax payments, technical reporting, and environmental commitments. This was not presented as a simple administrative move. Instead, it was framed as part of a broader effort to restore national control over the country's natural wealth. For Niger's leadership, the issue goes beyond individual contracts. It touches the deeper question of who truly benefits from the country's vast resources. Across the Sahel, this moment is being watched carefully. Supporters say Niger is reclaiming what rightfully belongs to its people. Critics warn that such actions could frighten away foreign investors. Either way, the decision signals that a new chapter may be unfolding in how African nations approach their natural resources. Niger is often described as a country rich in resources but poor in development. Beneath its deserts and plains lie some of the most valuable minerals in Africa. Uranium from Niger has powered nuclear plants in Europe for decades. Gold deposits have attracted mining companies from across the world. More recently, oil discovered in the Agadem Basin has opened a new chapter in the country's economic future. Despite this wealth, Niger has long remained one of the poorest nations on Earth. Many communities still struggle with limited infrastructure, weak industrial capacity, and few economic opportunities. For years, critics inside the country have argued that the structure of many resource agreements favored foreign companies more than the people of Niger. This frustration slowly built into a national debate about sovereignty over natural wealth. If a nation sits on valuable resources, many citizens ask a simple question: why does prosperity not follow? That question became even more powerful after the political transition that brought a new leadership to power in 2023. The new authorities began reviewing agreements signed in earlier years. Their goal was not only to check legal compliance, but also to reconsider whether these arrangements truly served the long-term interests of the nation. In that context, the cancellation of several mining concessions and the rejection of an oil license extension were not isolated events. They were part of a broader effort to redefine how Niger manages the wealth beneath its soil. Niger's recent decision to cancel several mining concessions sent shockwaves through the international resource industry. The government announced that 3 gold mining and processing companies, Comini, Afrior, and Ecomini, had lost their licenses. According to officials, these companies failed to meet important obligations required under their agreements with the state. Authorities explained that the violations were not minor administrative issues. The companies were accused of failing to pay required taxes, neglecting to submit annual technical and financial reports, and not fully respecting environmental regulations tied to their operations. In a country where natural resources are considered a strategic national asset, these failures were seen as serious breaches of trust. At the same time, Niger's government rejected a request from the British energy firm Savannah Energy to extend its exploration and drilling license in the southeastern region of the country. This area is part of the Agadem Rift Basin, the most important oil-producing region in Niger. Savannah had previously described the area as covering nearly half of the basin's known oil blocks. Officials argued that the company had not fully respected the terms of the production-sharing contract linked to these oil fields. For the government, honoring these agreements is essential because oil is expected to become one of Niger's most important sources of national revenue in the coming decades. These decisions were reinforced by another symbolic move. Niger had already nationalized the Samira gold mine, the country's only active industrial gold mine. By taking direct control of this strategic asset, the government signaled that it intends to play a stronger role in managing the nation's natural wealth. Taken together, these actions reveal a broader shift in policy. Niger is no longer willing to treat its resources as passive exports, controlled largely by external actors. Instead, the state is positioning itself as the central authority that decides how gold, uranium, and oil should serve the long-term interests of the nation. Behind Niger's recent resource decisions stands a broader political vision promoted by the country's leader, Abdurrahmane Chiani. Since taking power in 2023, his government has repeatedly emphasized three pillars that it believes are essential for the country's future. These pillars are national sovereignty, security, and control over strategic resources. For Chiani and his supporters, natural resources are not just economic assets, they are symbols of independence. In speeches and public statements, the leadership has argued that a nation cannot claim full sovereignty if it does not control the wealth beneath its own soil. This idea has resonated strongly among many citizens who feel that previous decades of foreign-dominated extraction did not translate into real prosperity. Under this new approach, Niger is not necessarily rejecting international investment. Instead, the government insists that partnerships must be based on respect for national laws and fair distribution of benefits. Companies that fail to meet these expectations, officials say, should not expect automatic extensions or preferential treatment. This philosophy explains why the government has become more willing to review or cancel agreements signed in earlier periods. Leaders argue that if contracts are not respected, or if they no longer serve national interests, the state has both the right and the responsibility to act. The message being sent is clear. Niger wants to remain open to cooperation with the world, but the terms of that cooperation are changing. In the eyes of the current leadership, natural resources must first support national development before serving external markets. This shift in thinking is transforming the way Niger approaches its economy. Resource policy is no longer viewed as a technical matter handled quietly by ministries. It has become part of a larger national project centered on sovereignty and long-term independence. Niger's decisions are also part of a wider regional movement that has been unfolding across the Sahel. The country is now closely aligned with Mali and Burkina Faso through the Alliance of Sahel States, often known as IES. What began as a security partnership has gradually evolved into something broader, touching politics, economics, and control over strategic resources. In Mali, the government led by Assimi Goïta introduced major reforms to the National Mining Code. The changes increased the share that the state and local partners can hold in mining projects. The intention was clear. Mali wanted to ensure that a larger portion of profits from gold production would remain inside the country rather than flowing mainly to foreign shareholders. Burkina Faso has moved in a similar direction under the leadership of Ibrahim Traore. The government has strengthened oversight of the gold sector and signaled that the state must play a stronger role in managing mineral wealth. Gold is the backbone of Burkina Faso's export economy, and officials argue that its benefits must contribute more directly to national development. When these policies are viewed together, a pattern becomes visible. Across the Sahel, governments are attempting to rebalance the relationship between states and multinational resource companies. They are not necessarily rejecting foreign investment, but they are seeking greater bargaining power. This emerging approach is reshaping the political narrative in the region. Resource control is now tied to ideas of sovereignty, dignity, and long-term economic independence. Leaders present these policies as part of a broader effort to build nations that are less dependent on external actors. For Niger, aligning with Mali and Burkina Faso strengthens this message. The country's recent actions on mining and oil therefore do not stand alone. They form part of a wider shift taking place across the Sahel, where governments are trying to redefine how natural wealth supports national futures. Niger's actions have not gone unnoticed in Western capitals and international business circles. For many foreign companies, the sudden cancellation of mining concessions and the refusal to extend oil exploration licenses raised serious concerns about investment stability in the region. Critics argue that such decisions could damage investor confidence. Large mining and energy projects require long-term planning, often involving billions of dollars in infrastructure, equipment, and technical expertise. When contracts are reviewed or cancelled by governments, companies fear that political risk may become too high for future investment. Some analysts in Europe and North America have warned that policies like these might discourage international capital from entering the Sahel region. They say that without foreign investment, developing complex industries such as uranium mining or oil production could become more difficult for countries with limited financial and technical resources. However, supporters of Niger's approach see the situation differently. They argue that the issue is not opposition to foreign investment itself, but the demand for fairer partnerships. From this perspective, companies are welcome to operate in the country as long as they respect national laws, environmental standards, and financial obligations. Many citizens in Niger and across Africa point to a deeper historical frustration. For decades, African countries rich in minerals and energy resources have remained among the poorest in the world. This reality has led to growing calls for governments to renegotiate agreements that appear to benefit foreign corporations far more than local populations. In that context, Niger's recent decisions can also be interpreted as an attempt to reset the balance of power. Rather than rejecting global cooperation, the country is trying to redefine the terms under which that cooperation takes place. The decisions taken by Niger may represent more than a single national policy shift. They may signal the beginning of a wider debate about how African nations manage their natural wealth in the 21st century. Across the continent, many countries are rich in minerals, oil, gas, and agricultural resources, yet the question of how these resources translate into real prosperity remains unresolved. For Niger, the current leadership believes that regaining control over strategic sectors is an essential step toward long-term development. By reviewing contracts, strengthening state oversight, and insisting on stricter compliance from foreign companies, the government hopes to ensure that a greater share of national wealth remains within the country. This idea is closely linked to broader political movements emerging across the Sahel. In recent years, leaders such as Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso and Assimi Goïta in Mali have also emphasized the importance of economic sovereignty. Their message resonates with a wider Pan-African conversation about independence, dignity, and the future of the continent. Supporters of these policies often describe them as part of a new chapter in Africa's story. In their view, countries that once exported raw materials under conditions shaped by external powers are now trying to renegotiate their place in the global economy. The goal is not isolation, but a more balanced relationship with international partners. Of course, the outcome of this strategy is still uncertain. Managing large resource sectors requires strong institutions, transparency, and long-term planning. Without these elements, simply changing ownership structures may not automatically produce development. Yet, the debate itself is significant. Niger's actions have forced both African governments and international companies to confront a fundamental question: who should ultimately benefit from the immense wealth beneath African soil? As the Sahel continues to redefine its political and economic path, the ideas of Pan-African cooperation, the role of the African Union, and the leadership of figures such as Captain Ibrahim Traore will likely remain central to the conversation. In this evolving Africa new narrative, countries like Burkina Faso and Niger are attempting to reshape how sovereignty, resources, and development intersect in the modern world.